10 of the web-based development workbench when we're using the editor. So the first thing I'm going to do is just fire up the GitHub client, which is nothing to do with SAP specifically there. It's the standard open source GitHub client. And what it means I can do is I can maybe create a new repository. Now I'm already logged in using my HANA Academy account here. So if I want, I could make a new repository, one that we're going to use for this exercise. So we can call this something like SPS 10 example. Okay, let's go and create that repository. And having created it, what we can in fact do is go ahead and publish it. So we're going to go ahead now and publish that so we get a branch and everything made available. So that repository has now been published. If you wanted just to check that, we can always go to github.com and then for our account name. And if we look at our list of repositories, we should see that we have SPS 10 example. And if we look in there, we have basically nothing much. We just created it a few seconds ago. So that's how it's looking. So now it's something we've got. We've got a branch called master. So we'll be able to actually go ahead and work with this now from HANA editor directly. So let's go back to the editor. What we can do, for example, is create an application. So let's right mouse button, and to save some typing, let's just use one of the templates. Let's go for our tried and tested HANA Access Hello World. And we can call this maybe SPS 10 example, whatever you want to call it. So it's now created as a little project. Of course, we can run it if you really want to see. And we call the backend and it says hello world from whichever user we're logged in as. So the app's up and running. We've got a number of different items. We've got an images folder. We've got XS Access, index.html. We've got an XSJS file. So we've got a number of things in there. So what we might want to do now is actually synchronize this with GitHub so that we have a backup of it and we can actually get at that from other machines and work in that way as well. So general more standardized source code management. So what we should do is use for the project an option called synchronize with GitHub. However, before I do that, just to save us a little bit of time later, if we go to the settings option and we choose the Git tab, we can specify basically the login information for our GitHub account. And this means we won't have to actually put this in every single time we want to do a bit of synchronization. So I'm going to put in my account details and apply that so that now when I go for the option synchronize with GitHub, he already has done that connection, and look, he has the list of repositories that we have with this account. So I'm going to choose my SPS 10 example repository, and then the branch. I'm going to choose the master branch, and once that's done, I can consider actually making synchronizations. First, I'll actually make a connection to it. And when I've done that, notice that we have a fetch and a commit. So if that repository already existed and you want to just bring the stuff into the web workbench, then you can just do a fetch and you can bring in what you need. In our case, what I'm going to do is commit what we've got in this project, put it into our new repository. So you see all the files that have been changed. So all files, I'm going to stage them all. If you're working with GitHub already, then you'll be familiar with this concept. Let's call this the initial commit, and let's commit that. Just be careful in case you've got, it's going to do pretty much an override. So just be careful if you've already got stuff remotely. We haven't, it's a nice clean one. Then just be careful about that because it can be kind of a little brutal in the way it does this the first time when you do a commit. But now we've done that, if we actually go back to our SPS 10 example, let's just refresh it. Now we'll see that the XS app and all our files, all our code is actually in there, so we can access it. And what it means if, for example, we were working with some other people or just myself working with some other software, if I go back to my GitHub client, it could be any application that you want that supports GitHub, notice that now it sees there's some changes, there's some commits. So if I hit sync, I'll be able to sync those changes locally. So in my SPS 10 example, I should be able to, in fact, open that up in Explorer. And I see I've got the files now locally. And if I go to the logic XSJS, and I can edit it. So let's maybe just do a little change. Let's say hello world from HANA user. So I'm now changing this elsewhere. Now it's going to recognize there's a file changed. Okay, so I'm going to just say HANA user as our description. I now commit that and I sync it. So you can see actually the full changes that have been made, the versioning there. I can now sync that. And when that's done, what I'll be able to do in the web-based workbench, so let's go back there, we'll see now that I've got the option either to fetch if I want to get back stuff. So if I click fetch, or for example, for the specific file, in this case logic XSJS, I could right mouse button on it and show versions. And in this case, what we now see is the version 1 here, which is the version we've got. And then here is a newer version, which was actually done on GitHub. The G there is because it's a GitHub version. So I could do my compare of the two versions. So I can see what I've got locally on the right as against what we've got, which was recently put into GitHub. And of course, what I can do is refer to that version. Effectively, it fetches it. So I can go to the version that's on GitHub. And now you see it says hello world from HANA user. And of course, I need to save that locally. So you can see we've got now a pretty good integration. Of course, if we make changes here, we maybe make another change there. Let's say HANA database user. Okay, just a little simple change to the text. Then once I've saved that, then what I'll also be able to do is if I go to SPS 10 example and synchronize with GitHub, just so we can see here, if I say commit, it's not going to commit everything. It will see just the files that have changed since we last did a commit, the files modified, and then that's normally typically what we want to commit. So this is where we say database, HANA database user, and I can commit that, and that will now be committed. And if we go back and refresh inside, just looking at the web page for GitHub, and I look at my logic, then we'll see it's hello world from HANA database user. So you can see that now we've got a very nice integration between GitHub for source code management and the web-based development workbench editor. So that's new in SPS 10. In addition to what's new for SPS 10 with HANA, please check out the many other tutorials and courses on our YouTube channel.